really like the filters. It's fun.
So it's leap, is it? Are you in the first year program now?
Yeah.
But you're going to be an architecture major? I'm glad. I can hardly believe how sophisticated this is. This is so well done. And it's so well drawn, and you're so articulate, and this is such totally serious research. I mean, this is amazing. It's a great job.
Put in a remark. The only thing that I think it's missing for me is like your process drawings. You've done so much research, so much work. It would be great to see not just your final work, but you know, the process and how you developed it.
And it's so far from the Foster Dome, and it's I mean, the Foster Dome isn't really relevant at all to the project. I don't mind that you said it, but man, you went so far away.
It was my first inspiration because I was studying issues and ideas with Donahue, and I really liked the concept of the Foster Dome. And then from there, it just evolved.
One thing, I mean, I agree completely. I think it's very sophisticated. That concerned me a little bit is when you started talking about the dome, and I was thinking, it's pretty warm in there. And then you mentioned the low-E glass, and so I can see that you thought about that. But you sort of talked about it in terms of the bacteria forming rather than the thermal comfort of the occupants. And similarly in the office space, that's why I was kind of asking, how exactly does light get down there? And could you really not, I'm always triggered when someone says, I couldn't get natural light into that space, and I think, well, you could, there must have been a way. So, I mean, I think that the problem that you set yourself and followed through really rigorously and impressively, and that when something becomes architecture, there's many layers that have to be built onto it. It's going to be really built, and that I think it's great, for example, that you included people in your drawings, but it seems that in your process and thinking that it's not necessarily the experience of the people that was what was foremost in your mind, so much as the exhibit itself, which I think is incredibly well realized.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone's talking about right now, but there's one thing I think, if I may challenge this within yourself, that you talked about that you haven't really, I think, addressed in some of your images here, which is that idea you talked about Coit Towers being a landmark. You talked about the different landmarks within San Francisco, and absolutely agree. From the bridge, you're going to be able to want this to be a landmark. You want this thing to be this shining star that everyone's going to kind of flock to and be able to go, oh yeah, that's where I am, that's where I want to go, I'm heading towards that thing. But I feel like, especially with the scale of the people there, I mean, I think Rebecca mentioned that there's many people in there, but they're really kind of small in scale. This one I think really illustrates my point to the T, which is like it's just this dot versus being this more grandiose thing like a Coit Tower or a landmark building, like the Infinity Towers that are down there now. That monstrosity of the Rincon Hill is this huge thing. I don't mean going to that scale, but when you're addressing that idea that you want it to be this landmark thing, I feel like what you've done is a start, but next to that roof line right there, I mean, it almost pales in comparison.
I think we were all surprised when we created this collage, and I was like, is this real? That's not the scale. So,
but
that's how you learn.
I think, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm really floored by this. I'm just, to me, I think that I feel very forgiving of any things that are, maybe little things. Like for me, for example, the fact that you chose white materials and you said that it was to symbolize purity. Well, that would be a really bad reason to choose white materials, because there's nothing symbolic or metaphorical or, all that kind of stuff. Your project has nothing to do with symbolism. It's about actual stuff happening. And so maybe white is because it actually functions as a clean room at places, and it actually, you need to perceive impurities. But so that would be an example where I would see one of the places to keep developing it. But it doesn't matter to me. I also feel like it's good that the figures are in there but actually I think that the perception of stuff is much more what it's about. And so to come to this question, for instance, of scale and how it's perceived, what's really powerful is, given the scale of the site, just that there's this gesture to say that this becomes a kind of beacon or lighthouse for air quality to anyone who can see it. And that's just such a powerful kind of statement of what this image should be. And there are things going on right now that I want to tell you, because I think you'll probably find them inspiring. So just this past week at Berkeley, this really fascinating architectural collective from New York came to give a lecture at UC Berkeley, and they call themselves The Living. And one of the projects that they showed is a kind of a buoy that they developed. They're architects, but they develop things that are kind of really architecture. And this is this kind of floating thing that can be made very cheaply and with no technology, and the technology can be put online for anyone to copy. And so cities around the world can start making these things and just throw them in. And when the pH level in the water starts to shift to an unhealthy level, which reflects all sorts of contaminants, it stops bobbing around and glowing green, and it glows red. And on stage, they had one of these things just pulsing green, and they added a few drops of something to the liquid it was attached to, and it just turned red, and the audience gasped. So those same architects are part of a show, an exhibition that's up here in San Francisco right now, that actually I co-curated, that's called Geiger, and it's at Southern Exposure, and it's all about all the issues that you're dealing with here. It's up for one more week, and I really urge you to see it, because the show, the work in the show, it's art, design, and architecture. I think that you'll find really speaks to your interests. It's all about visualizing air quality data, the whole exhibition. So Southern Exposure.
It's
Totally Saturday.
is it like 6
It's on 14th Street, just off of Valencia, between Valencia and Guro. Yeah, it's soex.org, soex.org. Yeah. Okay. I just think that's
I think
great.
it's a really fantastic.
I'm saying that I really appreciate that you have the beacon to show the air quality, but you also can see actual air itself, the oculus, and how different ways are related to it.
Great.
Good job.